Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the 10th Divine Podcast. This is a show about Elder Scrolls Online, and I'm your host, Shanty Man, and I am here with my amazing co-host, Raven. How are you doing this week?
Well, it's just been a week. I shall try to tone down the language I have been using to talk most of the week. I think the last time we recorded one of these shows, I was in the middle of buying a different flat and everything was going really well and really smoothly. And then in between us recording that show and us airing it as the first show, that flat sale fell through because I'm not allowed to take the cat.
Well, that's just not right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not rehoming the cat. She's a rescue already. So I'm now buying a different flat. Not hanging about. I went straight back to the place and looked at something else, and I put an offer in and had it accepted. But it meant that I've spent most of this week scrabbling again for mortgage applications and solicitors' paperwork, and it was a complicated conversation with the solicitor. I was like, okay, so you've got this piece of paper from last time. Is that still okay? Do you need it updating? Like, what about this piece of paper? Do you need a new one of these? What about this piece of paper? Oh, this has got the information about the flat on it, so this is a new piece of paper. Which has all been pretty stressful. Then work has also been pretty stressful because of it. Like, we offered somebody a job and they didn't take it, and that's driven a problem. That's caused a big problem for me as a senior manager. So it's just been a really, really, really full-on week that has had a lot of stuff in it, and none of the stuff has been very good. So yesterday was Friday. We're recording this on Saturday. Yesterday was Friday. I got home from seeing the horse for the first time since Sunday, because I ended up not being able to go to the field during the week, and I literally went to bed at 8:30 yesterday evening. I was sitting on my computer and I was like, oh, I could play some High Isle, and then I was like, nope, you're too tired, you are not operating properly, and I just went to bed at 8:30 at night. Kat was like, what? Like, about 9 o'clock, she came up into the bed and she was purring and like touching my face in a really I don't really it's not, what are you doing? It's not bedtime yet. What are you doing? This is madness. So yeah, it's been very stressful, awful, and horrible. How was your week?
Well, at work, they've adjusted the schedule of the day shift around so that all of the processors are there on the weekends. However, that means come Sunday night when I walk in, it's an utter mess, and it takes about 2-3 days to get resolved to the point where things are moving smoothly again.
Oh no.
So then come Wednesday night, I found out a friend and one of the earliest supporters of me and my content creation journey passed away.
Yeah.
So I want to wish Cap fair winds and a following sea on wherever the journey is taking you next.
Yeah, that was very sad.
Yeah, it broke my heart right as I woke up. Like, not ever the kind of thing you want to wake up to, but so that put a damper on the rest of the week. And then Friday, take the car into the shop because the check engine light is on again, third time this year, and turns out this time it's the pressure sensor, so I am without a car until either late Monday or Tuesday morning.
Grrr.
So yeah, it's definitely been a week on my end as well.
Yeah.
So let's move on to cheerier topics. What have you been up to in games since we last recorded?
So I did manage to, so firstly, I finished the main quest. Amazing. I actually defeated Molag Bal and saved Tamriel from the plane meld, or whatever it was I was supposed to be doing. It took me a while, so that's taken me over 6 months to get round to doing that. But I finally found some time in between doing lots of side quests and messing around in my houses to, save Tamriel. So that's nice. I thought that was quite nice of me to put those hours in. I've also So after High Isle launched, so on Monday, I was like, oh, I never did the prologue quest. So I went and did the prologue quest on Monday to High Isle. And then actually on Thursday, I did get to actually go to High Isle and start a little bit of questing with the Lady Arabella, which I've been very much enjoying. I think it's good. I do like ESO questing a lot. It was a bit confusing. So obviously one of the key differences between WoW and ESO is that WoW signposts you everywhere. Although actually it didn't do a very good job of signposting me for stuff in 9.2.5, but I'll complain about that on Girls Gone WoW tomorrow. But so it meant on Thursday I was like, okay, I'd like to go to High Isle now. How do I get to High Isle? And it was like, okay, well you could just go to the Way Shrine. It's on your map. But I'm still not quite familiar enough with the map of Tamriel to have been able to easily identify which the new bit was that had been added that I could now go to. So I did have a little bit of a like, huh. And then when I was wandering around, I'd gone to Elden Route, and eventually I was like, oh, this person has a cart, and the cart is going to High Isle. Great, I'll just get on this cart. So I went to the cart. And then I opened my map and I was like, oh, it's here. Oh, okay, all right. So yeah, I felt a little bit stupid for that, to be honest. But I've arrived. I've done some questing. I've just found Stibbons, so I'm going to go and help them out for a bit in a minute. And yeah, I've been really, really enjoying the questing. Thinking a little bit. So I'm at about 360 champion points at the moment. So I need to spend some more of my points and sort of shore up my build a little bit, but also thinking about whether I've got the right build at the moment or whether there's other, whether I want to start doing some other bits and pieces. We're on the verge of getting our dungeon group back together, I would say. And hopefully once we get the dungeon group going regularly, we can start doing some veteran dungeons, because I think we're all probably experienced enough and big enough to go and do some of that now. So that's the next exciting thing on the horizon. But I have managed to get a couple of hours at least in actually on High Isle, so I'm quite pleased about that. What about you? Have you been experiencing the new content?
So I did get about an hour and a half in this morning myself. So I went to the collections menu and just picked up the quest that sent me to High Isle that way.
Oh, yeah, I should have done that.
So I got there, I did a delve, happened upon a world boss that nobody else was trying to take down, so got 3-shot as I was trying to exit the area that they were in. But I am enjoying exploring the new content. I've done a little bit of the questing with Lady Arabella, and I'm really looking forward to getting into Tales of Tribute probably tonight. And I'm an avid board gamer, so when I saw the way it worked, I was like, "Oh, this is Dominion. I understand this already.
Okay,
great."
Okay, so you're looking forward to Tales of Tribute then? You think that's going to be a high point for you?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it will be.
Okay, I'm not really into that kind of thing, so I'm not sure that I'm going to enjoy it. But I think it's great when there are things in games that other people play that I don't play. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, every bit of content doesn't have to be for every person. No. That's one of the beauties of the MMO genre in general.
Absolutely.
And if I find joy in it and you don't, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's your favorite NPC that you've met so far?
Probably the druid that you first meet, just because getting to see the lore that they're sprinkling in of the druids with the different circles. So I'm enjoying following that up so far. How about you?
I really like Lady Arabella, actually. I really hate Jakar, but I think I'm not supposed to like him. I think that's the point of that character, so that's fine. But I do really like Lady Arabella. She's got excellent glasses. I'm enjoying her glasses. I don't know how they stay on her face. There's some weird kind of
Either, but in a world with magic, who knows?
some weird sort of localized gravity effects or something going on there. But yeah, I did also really enjoy meeting the druid. But yes, I like the fact that you can quite often niggle Lady Arabella about writing books. And have conversations with her where she's like, no, don't be so stupid. Of course I don't write those books. Of course, I really enjoy them. They're very good, but no, of course I don't write those books. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying that. Looking forward to getting some more of that done this week, and maybe we'll get some group content in this week, which would be good.
So we are very excited for today's guest, who was at the top of both of our lists when we were putting together the idea for this show. From both Tales of Tamriel and the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, Lotus of Doom. How are you doing, Lotus?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are delighted to have you with us. Definitely delighted to have you with us today. Can you give us a bit of a brief history about how you came to find yourselves in the Elder Scrolls universe, and then specifically in ESO?
So I got started. I always joke that this kind of like oddly dates myself because sometimes people don't really understand how old I am in regards to some things. But I started back in high school. I was over my friend's house and he had he had an Xbox, like an original Xbox. And
wow.
Yeah. And I would go over because I didn't have any, I had like a PS2 or something like that. And I was rummaging through his games when we were all over hanging out, and I looked at the cover of Morrowind, and I was like, what the hell is this? And he was like, yeah, that game's not really like anything you play, because I used to be like a Call of Duty person and a Madden person, and like RPGs weren't super my thing. And I was like, well, whatever, I'll try it. So I put it in, and I had no idea what was going on whatsoever. And I was kind of like, okay, so what do you do in this?
And Morrowind is so easy, just out of the box, to understand what's going on.
They explain everything perfectly. Yeah, totally. And he was just like, I don't know, you make a character and you just roam around, you do whatever you want. So I started literally doing whatever. I was like, well, I'm going to break into this house and I'm going to steal this guy's thing. He's like, yeah, you can do that. I was like, wait, really? So I turned it into a skooma hut right out the gate. And after a little while, I had been over his house playing it so much. He was like, dude, you have to like get your own because this is ridiculous. Like you play this way too much. So I literally went out and bought an Xbox with Morrowind just because he was annoyed how often I was over his house playing it. And that was kind of how I got started with the Elder Scrolls series, was back on the OG Xbox. And since then, I've just tried each of them. I have zero experience with MMOs, so trying ESO at the start was a little weird. I was just like, oh, cool, a multiplayer one, which I like multiplayer games, but I was like, I don't know about this MMO thing. Like, people had showed me World of Warcraft and stuff like that, and it just didn't click.
Yeah.
And the beta didn't click either for ESO. And I was like, yeah, this is a pass. So I kind of did just ignore it. I was like, yeah, this just isn't for me. But then right before One Tamriel, it launched on console, and a couple people I know picked it up, and they were like, oh yeah, it's actually like pretty good. So I gave it another shot, and I kind of liked it, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just mess around with the story a little bit in it. And then One Tamriel dropped, and then I became obsessed with it, and now I play it way too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Then they fixed it.
Right, pretty much, yes. I was going to say, like, and it's funny, as somebody who didn't like it at the start, I still think it kind of got ripped on more than it probably should have. It just wasn't super my thing. It definitely wasn't, like, as many games aren't. Seemed like it needed some more time in the oven, but it was too MMO for me to start with, was my big problem.
I think it also came out at a really awkward moment in the MMO evolution, because it came out at basically the same time as WildStar. So it came out at a point where WoW was in a little bit of a lull, and I remember this because I played in the ESO beta. a fact that I'd completely forgotten about until I started up my account this January, and it was like, "Hey, have a monkey! You played in the beta."
Oh yeah,
And I
that's right.
was like,
You mentioned you got your free monkey.
"Oh, so I did." I sort of vaguely remember that because it was a moment when WoW was having one of its lulls, although not the lull that it's currently having. That's my doorbell. Inconvenient. Sorry.
Yeah, and on that topic, while we're touching on MMOs, it's funny how you would initially talk about WoW and other MMOs and that not being for you, and then come Legion timeframe, so
Mhm.
2017, 2018,
Okay.
they started scaling content just like ESO does with One Tamriel. So
Oh,
they've
interesting.
it's actually been an influence on other games in the genre at this point now too.
Huh. I mean, it's such a good, like, being able to group up with people. Like, one of the things I remember about when I originally started with ESO, and even when I started to like it on console, I was like, oh, this is good. Maybe I'll just play through the stories. Like, I'll do that. And grouping was a huge pain in the ass at first. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, because you had the thing where it was like you couldn't cross alliance, so it was like, oh, you got to make it. Oh, I'm this faction. Well, okay, well, you got to become EP to do this, or you got to be DC to do that. I'm like, okay, this is annoying. And then when we were in the same faction, it was, oh, you're not high enough level to even get experience out of this. Everything's just going to one shot you. I was like, man, this is a lot of work to just play with people that I already know. Like, good lord.
Yeah. How did you start your content creation journey? We know you joined Tails well after the launch of the show, but how did that come about?
To be fair, almost everybody except Agelos joined Tails long after, because that shows like at this point it's a joke how long that show has been running. But I was a listener of the show. I got into, like, I didn't know what podcasts were for a very long time. And at work, I listened to a lot of music just because my job tends to allow me to just listen to stuff constantly. And I would listen to a lot of music, and then I was kind of interested in a couple different topics and found out about this podcast thing. And I was like, oh, this is kind of a neat idea. And I stumbled into a show that doesn't exist anymore called Elder Scrolls Off the Record, which for a long time was the longest. Like, it basically started around the same time of Tales, but it's long been discontinued now. And as a side effect, I also found Tales and became a fan of that show. So I was a listener for several years. And prior to that, I joined up because of a local game store with the charity Extra Life, which is now pretty enormous compared to what it was. Like, yeah, this is my 10th year doing it. So like
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So when I first found out about it, it was like, I think for the year's numbers, they were like, oh, combined, all 110 people raised like $30,000. And it's like, it's so funny to think of how far back that was compared to like last year. It was like, oh, we raised $11 million. It's like, wow, there were like, there's more people per state doing Extra Life now than there were originally altogether when I started. So I tried to figure out some way that I could get fundraising done without it just needing to be people that I knew. So I tried streaming from my original PlayStation 4 just using the share button, which,
wow,
yeah, don't recommend necessarily. I mean, it's better than nothing and it's fine to get started, but basically I started doing that in order to try to expand who would bump into me, and maybe just on the off chance that somebody would be interested and donate, or share it so that somebody else could donate or something like that. And it steadily picked up traction until Tales of Tamriel actually found out about it just from me being in the Elder Scrolls community. And they promoted me on their stream, kind of like without me doing anything, Ark and Agelos at the time. And I was like, wait, did the podcast that I listened to just like promote my stuff? I was like, well, that's interesting. So they were really influential in helping me with that. And then after after like that happened, I had kind of gotten in touch with them because I would write into the show sometimes and stuff like that. So I was friendly-ish with them, not, you know, but it was kind of like, oh, I would send an email to the show or tag them on Twitter or something like that. And when they were shuffling around hosts because of scheduling conflicts, some people apparently suggested that I join for the guest spot. Like, so I did. And as soon as the show ended, Agelos was like, "Cool. Do you've never done this before?" I was like, "Absolutely not. I kind of just guessed." He was like, "Cool. Do you want a permanent spot as a host? Because you manage that real well." I was like, "Oh, sure." And since then, I've never left, and now I'm like one of the longest hosts of the show and kind of help run it. So, not the trajectory I expected, but what are you gonna do?
That's pretty amazing. How long have you been doing Tales now?
A little over 3 years with Tales, and I believe just under 3 years with the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, which Tom started that up, and he did it about a year where it was just him doing it, and asked if I would have interest in sharing my experience with it and having somebody to bounce off of, because it's a lot easier to do it with a conversation style thing than just you talking into the void and not sound like it's off a script.
Solo podcast. I so admire anyone that can do a solo podcast.
Mhm.
It's like that's a real skill. That's a real skill.
It is. To not, and he actually I thought was good. Yeah, I thought he was very good at it, but he was like, "Yeah, no, this is way better." So I was like, "All right, yeah, that's fine with me then." So
cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's so enamored with how much better it is that he's locked the original slate behind Patreon.
Yeah, he removed the, I think it was 90. Yeah, it was like 90 episodes. He put them off to the side and he was like, yeah, he's like, it's the lowest tier Patreon if you're really interested in this. But he's like, this does not give a good interpretation of the show. So he's like, if you're really interested, you can do 1 month sub, then just unsub just so you can listen to them. And he's like, it's really just side stuff. He's like, don't worry about it. We're going to even redo the topics again just because I don't want those to be the only version of them. And we're like, okay, whatever works. So it's like, I don't know. It's definitely fun. This has been a hobby I never really had any interest or knowledge of prior to it, really. And then once I got involved with it, I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a bit addictive, isn't it, podcasting? And indeed streaming.
Yes. I wish I had more time to devote to this stuff, honestly. Like, it's some people that do it for their job, I can totally see it being stressful and all that stuff. But it was like, man, if I didn't work like 40 or 50 hours and then try to squeeze this in, I was like, man, I could do so much more with this.
Yeah, tell me about it. And then I go to work and people are like, so what are your hobbies then? And it's like, well, I stream video games. And they're like, but you're the finance director. How does that work? Like, what?
Don't put too much thought into it. It totally works. It's becoming normal.
Yeah, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. Gamers are taking over.
Yes.
Just another kind of getting to know you type question for any of our listeners who are not familiar with you. Are you a single character type of player? Do you have a bunch of alts ready to go? What's your play style? So
funny enough, because most people in ESO tend to be altaholics, where it's just like alt. I can't stand running alts. It overwhelms me way too quickly. The fact that I have 2 characters that I use in ESO is like unlike anything I've ever done. And it's just, I've got my main character, which I used for everything, and it just defaults as a tank. But then once they did shared achievements in game, because I'm a huge achievement collector, they like, it's easier to get a role as a DPS because there's 8 of them for a trial.
Yeah.
There's usually 2 tanks, 3 at most. I don't like healing, so that's not my gimmick, but like I wanted the versatility to be able to run with more groups and fill in for people as need be. So I was like, I guess I'll learn to DPS. And once they did the shared achievement thing, I was like, oh, okay, well now I have, even if I unlock something totally separate, it doesn't matter. That's still fine. And my other character started as a joke several years ago. Ark, the other co-host of Tales of Tamriel, can't stand Gwar, and he can't stand high elves. Like those are like the banes of his existence in game. So as a troll, I made Ark in game. So he is a high elf, which he was not pleased about. I put him in the Aldmeri Dominion, which he can't stand, and I named him Guaranir instead of Arcanir. And it caught on really, really fast with everybody and got shared around an awful lot. People will send in screenshots of me in the overworld of Guaranir just like running around, and they'll send it to Ark and be like, "We found you." So after a while, I decided since the character was already made, that would be who I'd use for my damage dealing character. So I just turned it into a legit character. So now I have that as my damage dealer. And then I've got my normal character. So I have two, but it's like Skyrim, like I have however many thousands of hours. I don't use mods and I still play my original character. And people are like, "What? Why?" I was like, "I don't know. I can't bring myself to restart things. Like I like to just continue on and see what I miss basically forever."
Yeah, I'm not much for leveling either. In my World of Warcraft, I only have one character basically, and I've been playing that character since 2009. So
yeah, there you go.
Just kind of that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm the resident alcoholic on the show. So going so far as to play on 3 separate platforms.
I was going to say, you play ESO on so many different things to begin with, which the fact that I had to start on PC because of an Extra Life incentive was like, oh my God. And I had to, going back through, I was like, this is terrible. Like re-leveling, like this was so much fun originally. Why am I not enjoying re-leveling at all?
Yeah, it's pretty rubbish that you can't. I mean, I understand they're completely separate ecosystems and there are technological barriers and all of that, but it's kind of unfortunate that you can't, like, I don't know, copy a character across or something. It's just a database. Maybe you know.
Right. It's one of the things that I'm sure they're long sick of hearing about was originally I was like, oh, it'd be great if we have crossplay. Now I'm just like, just give me cross save. That's fine. Just give me a universal save file that I can jump. And I know it wasn't designed with that in mind originally, but, and it's one of the things that I was like, I don't like it to sound as mean as it just figure it out for me. Like, I don't care. Yeah. Like, I don't care why it's not possible. Just figure it out because I would love it. And
yeah.
Okay, so you had already touched on this a little bit, but what role and class do you typically play?
So my main character that I do most everything is a tank. And I'm a Dragon Knight just because it seemed when I built it to be the best tanky thing at the time, and having zero context for MMOs and stuff like that, it was kind of like guesswork. And the reason to it, since I didn't know about this like Holy Trinity thing that was going on or any of that to MMOs, which I learned about later, was I just played the game and other people were like, yeah, you're a tank. And I was like, I don't have any context for what that means. And they're like, you're very obsessed with not dying, so you're just going to learn to position stuff and will kill it. And that was basically how I learned that I mained a tank. And then like my other character is a Magplar because jabs, and it makes people who are terrible at rotations make it look like you know what you're doing, because people have seen me do stuff and they're like, oh wow, you're really good. I'm like, I'm really not. It's a very unique setup that I learned. Shout out to Duma Gaming, was the guy who designed what I used as a base for my Magplar. And it was designed for people with a disability where switching bars was actually problematic for them because of like IRL reasons. So it's designed around minimal inputs on a single bar, but still being able to be really effective. So one, that's really cool that some people are designing stuff around that and having it work. I took that not because of like the disadvantage situation to a controller. I was just like, I'm not good at this. So like if I
Mhm.
learn to do that, I can kind of branch it out. So I took his thing and then branched it out into what I have now. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I kind of have that as my other one.
Cool. So High Isle opened this week.
Sure did.
Yay.
Yep, sure did.
How are you finding it? Are you have you dipped your toes into the High Isle's waters?
So I have seen the quality of life stuff on PC, but unfortunately on console, I have to wait until the
Oh.
21st.
Yeah, bummer.
So I'm watching everybody else have a lot of fun. And I have it on like I have ESO on PC, but I didn't really want to buy the expansion twice.
Yeah,
So
fair.
I was like, but then you get a lot of the quality of life free stuff that comes with each patch as well. So I updated it and I've been messing around seeing what was added, changed, stuff like that. But as for the content itself, I've just been longingly watching streams and being like, oh man, why are they having more fun than me? So
Oh.
yeah, I'm very excited to get it. Also, I'm really interested in the very contentious card game thing, which everybody was all over originally. And now that everybody's playing it, they're like, oh, I love this. I'm like, okay, sure.
What is it
I
about
don't know.
MMO players and giving people new things? Like, have a new thing. Here's a new thing. Have a new thing. No, we hate it. We hate it.
No.
It's going to be the worst thing. Don't give us a new
Yeah.
thing.
This
Want
is
a new
stupid, and how dare you? Also,
It's in
this
their
game
hands.
never changes. Grr. It's like, what?
Yeah, the new thing is awful until they get their hands on it and try it themselves and fall in love.
Right.
It's almost a trope at this point.
It
Yeah.
really is. It really is. And, you know, I'm very much for, I play all aspects of ESO. So I'm like, oh, yeah, if there's some things I don't like, I just tend not to play them. Not everything needs to
Yeah.
be designed just for me and no one else. Like,
No, totally. Like, I don't think tribute's gonna be my thing. I don't
I don't
like
either.
I don't like those kinds of things in general. But I just yesterday picked up the like breadcrumb quest for like, hey, there's a dude over there in a games house. You should go try this new thing that everybody's playing. So I haven't played it yet, but you know, I'm being pointed in that direction gently.
Yep.
But that's fine. If I don't like it, cool. I just won't
Whatever.
do it.
Right.
The same way
Exactly.
I don't PvP, so that's fine. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and most people love. I was going to say I do PvP, but the fallback for everybody's favorite PvP is like, well, if the servers aren't working, I'll play Battlegrounds, and I'm like, Battlegrounds are my nightmare. I was like, I'm glad you have them, but for whatever reason, I have way less technical issues in Cyrodiil, which makes zero sense. And my Battlegrounds is just a laggy nightmare where I have no idea what's going on like 95% of the time. And people are like, that doesn't, like, there's
That's
no
not right.
way that makes sense. And
That
some of the
sounds
video,
completely backwards.
it does.
Yeah.
And every time I post a PvP video, people are like, I've literally never seen that in a Battleground before. I was like, congrats, that's the 5th time it's happened to me. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Something in your PlayStation that doesn't,
It does,
doesn't
right?
like
And
it.
and it's not even this. I've gone from a PS4 to a PS5, so it's not even the system freaking out. It's
Wow.
multiple. I have no idea. I don't.
Wow.
BGs are my curse, apparently.
So you do have a bit of a reputation as an achievement hunter, as you alluded to earlier. So what is the favorite achievement that you've earned already, and what is one that you just can't wait to get?
So, yeah, I don't like to ever have it come across as like downplaying the actual situation of obsessive compulsive disorder, but I am sort of obsessive if I don't pay attention to things, like not as in like like just I will over focus on things. So
Yeah.
like I try to keep myself like in check. My wife actually helps quite a bit with that. So that I don't like super obsessed, but like there's some stuff that I find super, super fun, and collecting achievements is one of them. And I definitely have spent a lot of time doing weird stuff where people are like, I didn't even know that was a thing, and I spent like 9 hours doing it. I'm like, surprise! But my favorite achievement is probably crowning myself, or not myself, because I had a ton of people help me with it, obviously. But when I crowned Emperor in Cyrodiil, it was, I don't know, it was a long time ago now. I much prefer helping other people get crowned Emperor than doing it myself. but it was one of the things. I had come in third place on the leaderboard before campaign ended, and then I came in second place, defeated by my own guildmate, which was a little rough.
No.
And a lot of people didn't like that very much because they were like, dude, you just ousted like one. And I was like, no, it's fine. If I can't get first, I don't expect to be given first.
No.
So I was like, no hard feelings. I was like, but I did learn a more efficient way to do a couple things. And the following one, I was actually helping somebody else at first. And I think at hour 11, they were like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot just farm in a circle doing this, killing. They were like, I'm out. I was like, well, I'm not out because I'm just still going because I was pretty high up on the leaderboard with that. And at the time, I was just grinding AP and running around Cyrodiil. And my wife was curious. She was like, you have been playing for like 14 hours. What are you doing?
What's going on over there? What's
I was
happening?
like, I'm getting crowned emperor in my video game. And she's like, she is not a gamer. Like, she'll goof around with video games, but she is not like a gamer. And she's like, I'm sorry, come again? I was like, I'm going to be emperor of the fucking world. Like, that's how this is working. And she's like, are you like kidding? Or is that like really a thing? And I showed her I was like, this is the achievement I'm going for. She's like, do you get a crown? I was like, I get a throne. This is what's happening. And she's like, okay, how long does this take? So I gave her the explanation of vaguely what I was doing in non-gamer terms. She's like, all right, I'll go cook you something to eat so you can just sit here. She's like, let me know when. And she kept me in snacks and everything while I was going, which was so nice because then she was like, so that makes me queen. I was like, that makes you queen because now, yeah, that was, to be fair, my emperor push was only, I think, like 18 hours or something straight before I took first place. And then I goofed around with it for a while. But the guild, I don't even think exists anymore. But to anybody who ever might bump into this, because I know they still play, the guild, they were called Sever True Bloods. When I claimed first place, I just kind of posted casually like, hey, if anybody isn't doing anything, I'm trying to flip the map. I got first place, like in this thing. And I think it was 82 people all stopped what they were doing and flooded the server for me at the same time. And we just completely trucked all other factions. Most of them had like military backgrounds, so it was a PvP guild. They were very, very organized.
Wow. Yeah.
And back when you could do 24-person groups, we had 3 full 24-person groups and then like another group. And yeah, they just were like, okay, you here, here, here. And they were like making sure that I had callouts so that like anytime a keep was about to flip anywhere on the map, I could port to them to get the points while they did the work to flip it so that nobody could catch me. Aww. And I'm just like, yeah. So I still, even after all these years, appreciate the fact that that was like so much effort by so many people to like give me a hand getting that. So yeah, that was pretty amazing.
That's really the kind of spirit of MMO gaming, isn't it? Like, that lots of people coming together, working together, just to help one person do a thing. There's lots of equivalent experiences in other video games, but that's the real nub of
it's
like
very
MMO
unique.
Gaming. Yeah,
I've never experienced amazing. Really that much organization to anything prior to, which was very like, oh wow, this is a lot. And, I still have the clip on my original PlayStation. And I've watched it again and I was like, you can't understand anything because once I get crowned, it's 80 people in a guild chat just screaming incoherently. I'm like, you don't understand. They literally can't even make out a single word. It's like...
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
So yeah, that's probably my favorite moment of unlocking something. The one that I'm trying to get, and it's actually the only title left in the game that I want, is Godslayer. And I'm in a group right now for it. We're getting in the ballpark of it or whatever. But I think that's a really cool title. And it's notoriously one of the most difficult trial challenges where you have to do the Sunspire, Speedrun No Death Hard Mode simultaneously. And a lot of the, I like doing the trifecta things. But a lot of times if you can make sure nobody dies while doing the hard mode, you kind of get the speed run by chance. Sunspire isn't like that. if you just if you just do it normal, you're gonna miss it by a lot.
Right.
So you need to have all sorts of stuff planned out, and like even watching through practice runs and stuff like that, I'm like grabbing the attention of things while sprinting down staircases and stuff while people are trying to throw dots where I'm going to be. And I'm like, this is going to be a weird thing if we ever manage to pull this off, because it's just so much practice, but hopefully one day.
Wow. That sounds pretty epic, I have to say. And combat is one of the areas where ESO is very different from other MMOs that I played. It's certainly very different from World of Warcraft. So I think that's not the sort of achievement that you'd ever get in WoW in quite the same way.
Sure.
So yeah, I think those are quite unique. Circling back to the world of content creation, you donate all of your streaming income to charity, which is like an amazingly cool thing to do.
I do.
How did you decide that was what you were going to do, and which charities are you supporting at the moment?
So the reason I started streaming, like I had mentioned, was kind of just like as a way to, like, I only ever tried streaming because I was trying to get attention for something I was trying to do. So then once I started doing it, I was like, well, I have a job that supports myself. Like, this is not anything I think I don't think I could ever make myself want to do this as a job anyways. Like, I need a
It's a lot of work.
it is. And like the uncertainty of it, like, would freak me out personally. Like, so much respect to people who can organize and plan for all those things. It was like, no, I'm my own, like, I run my own business, and I'm like, yeah, no, I need to have everything planned out like that, but it's based on the needs of my business. Whereas like, oh man, I don't know if I could account for like, oh yeah, this game's no longer popular, but that was my main source of income. So like, it's like, oh my God, like, people having fail safes and plans for stuff like that, it's like, oof, that is some good planning by everybody. So I figured, as a result of gaming more often than not getting kind of a bad stigma, I figured a good way to make sure that it was something I could never have be, okay, well, this is business and I'm doing it this way, because it's like, no, this is my hobby and I want to keep it fun. I just won't allow money to have anything to do with my enjoyment. So then I'll never rely on it, and I can put it to some type of good use. So that's kind of how I always stayed with the idea of like, yeah, I'd rather just not. Honestly, I wish Twitch wouldn't even pay me. I wish they would just donate it for me. Like, it's an extra step to my taxes where it's like, well, we paid you, but then you donated I was like, could you just give it away for me? Like, don't even give it to me. Skip me entirely. This is annoying. It's an extra step. But what do you call it? So like that was kind of the reasoning behind doing it, and I've just stuck with it from that regard. So I figure from the streaming aspect, I'll just stay with that, I guess, and just kind of use that as my platform, because the other thing is too, it's real easy to not be overly sympathetic to trolly people or people being shitty, because it is the internet, and even when communities are awesome, there's always outliers.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it's your business, you don't want to be too heavy-handed. If somebody's going to be, I don't know, a racist piece of garbage in my chat, it's just like, no, delete. I have no time for that. Like, no, wrong. Except maybe we'll explain to you why you're being dumb and then kick you. Like, I don't want that. That's garbage. Like, and I don't need that. Like, that's not the point of it. It's supposed to be fun. And when there's literally no monetary thing tied to it, I don't need to be hesitant about doing something like that. So I guess it kind of makes that a little easier. But on the flip side, I very rarely have to do stuff like that. Like, people just, so many in the community are so chill. It's like, luckily, it's not a big problem here, at least with Elder Scrolls for the most part, in my experience. And at the moment, I've got my Extra Life thing up, which I do every year. We do a big push toward the end of the year, even though my campaign's up. And one thing which I was just going to be announcing my schedule for it very soon is Wes Johnson, who is the voice actor for Hermaeus Mora, Sheogorath, um, the Oblivion Guards, the Super Mutants, and Fallout. Like well documented resume. He is doing a thing called The Longest Day, which is a charity to help solve the problem of Alzheimer's. And I am actually part of the team for that. So I'm also raising money for that. And actually, I was going to be posting my campaign and all that stuff. But yeah, I guess sneak peek for anybody who hears this first before I post the thing next week. I'm going to do my charity day on the release of High Isle on console. So the 21st.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to just, as soon as I'm back from work, I'm just going to stream High Isle, and anything we raise, I'm going to just donate to the Longest Day Foundation. So yeah, that's my other one that I'm currently involved in, at least.
Ah, cool. Cool.
On that topic, I'm actually also going to be involved with that.
I thought you might be. If you have interest, since you play on PlayStation as well, you're totally welcome to join on mine. I have no idea what we're going to be doing, or if ESO will even be up, because it will be launch day.
Yeah.
The only problem is it depends on if it's midweek. I'm working overnight, so
yeah. So you'll probably be needing to sleep during the day.
Yeah, that's where the issue is.
Right. Well, you get an open invite all the same. So if you're around, you're welcome to join. So
I appreciate it. So we alluded to this last episode, but a lot of our audience is coming to the game or fresh to the game, much like we are. So what advice would you have for newer players?
So the advice I always try to give, and it's actually funny because like it seems unique for ESO from what I've heard, but it's also like now becoming like the most common piece of advice I hear. Don't rush in ESO. You don't need to get to end game. Like just find what you like about the game, whether it's stories or PvP, or if you like just grinding in a cave or whatever, that's fine. But learn what the game is teaching you while you do said grinding in cave. Run dungeons, whatever. Find the thing that you want to have fun with, but there is not only is there no reason to rush to quote unquote end game in ESO, it's usually actively a detriment, and you need to then stop and be taught how to play because you didn't learn how to play. Which I've heard is very different than a lot of other games. I would definitely say for World of Warcraft, it's all these days. It's all about rushing to the end, and then the gameplay completely changes, and the way that you use your character completely changes at endgame once you get geared. So then, you have to like unlearn everything and relearn something else. Right, which I can understand them wanting to not bother wasting your time with something you're not going to use. ESO, even the stories, you learn how to do the stuff that you're then going to be using in the really difficult stuff if you get into it toward end game. Like it's been a joke on more than one episode of Tales where they teach you to bash basically at the start of the game, which is literally just you push with your character. And in Trials, as of the newest stuff, you still need to know how to do that. And it's shocking how few people know how to do that. So, yeah, it's definitely a game that takes a little bit almost to just find what you have fun with and just do that, because you will get better even if you don't realize you're getting better at it. And it prepares you more than you seem to realize oftentimes with ESO.
Cool.
And I mean, even in some endgame builds, you're still using those first 3 skills that you unlock right at the start. So, I mean, the journey is part of the learning process for this game, more so than a lot of others.
It makes becoming quote unquote like end game easier if you actually just learned the preliminary stuff, because you don't have to then learn, like it cuts that step out of like, well, now I need to learn to do this to do this. It's like, well, you already know how to do this. Now you just need to learn this. Like ESO breadcrumbs a lot of things throughout itself be they instances or overall, more than I feel like a lot of games do. So you don't even realize how much you're picking up till you get there. And a lot of it ends up being just like, oh, I already know how to do that. And it's like, well, yeah, because you've been secretly doing it while doing these casual quests where there's like no threat of death, but you just got a very specific, like, oh, I can, chain around with this grapple hook thing. And then you get to Unhallowed Grave, and it turns out one of the main mechanics to the dungeon is to grapple hook around. And it's like, well, yeah, you already know how to do that because you were doing the quest. Like, boom, done.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. We did just have a couple of final questions to finish off, but you've actually answered mine already. I was going to ask you what the story of Guacamole was, but
Yep, it's the ultimate troll for Ark.
It's a good story and a good answer.
And speaking of trolling, so why is AD the best faction?
Oh, this interview is over. It is really funny though, because one of the things that we obviously joke constantly about. If you're ever in my stream, we badger each other with like all the emotes and stuff like that. I have a For the Pact axe. One of our friends, Avron, is a huge Dominion fan, so like we're constantly ripping on each other. One of our previous hosts, Hyperpixie, was a big AD fan, so like we always joke that the AD keeps sneaking on the show as well. But it's funny because like one of the cool things is there's not really a lot of black and white in the Elder Scrolls. So theoretically, all three sides are really pretty sketchy with what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, like faction wise at the start, I was just like, oh, this one looks kind of cool. And I like some of the stuff they do, but like, it's one of those things where it's just like the AD, all I can ever think of specifically is fourth era, or the Skyrim time of the Dominion, which the Thalmor have taken over by that point. And they are just insufferable monsters. So I'm like, look, the Dominion's eventually going to become this. We might as well wipe them out before it gets there.
It's fair. One of the things I like the most about the Elder Scrolls is the kind of shades of grey that exist across everything.
Pretty much everywhere.
Even if as playing, you're trying to play quite a good character and you're not like in the Dark Brotherhood and you don't do any of those kind of like, you don't steal from things, you don't do any of that. You're frequently called upon to like murder people. Like,
exactly.
Like, it's just
and that's just it. It's all of these things, when you look deep into them, it's like, oh God, they're all monsters. Like
so many quests. Who are you going to sacrifice out of these two people? And you're like, oh, but I like both of them. I've helped both of them do things. Like,
yes. Okay. And there's the quest without spoiling it, but there's a quest where you basically have an option to sacrifice this character or not in a pretty major quest line in ESO. And you could do the correct thing, quote unquote, and like not condemn this person to like this horrible existence. Or you could totally do it and you get 2 skill points that you have no other way to get otherwise. And anybody who knows that in advance suddenly isn't so noble.
Yeah. It's amazing how easily gamers are swayed. It's like...
there's power progression involved in this.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, how bad could Eternal Damnation really be? Shove.
Yeah.
It's like,
it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's only pixels.
Yeah.
It's all fine.
I've got 2 skill points now.
Yeah. A friend of ours is currently playing SWOTOR, and she keeps forgetting. So she's leveling a Sith character at the moment. She keeps forgetting that she's leveling Sith. So she was like, I'm going to be the evilest Sith. I'm going to play maximum dark side. Except she keeps forgetting. So she keeps taking the light side options because her like instincts are just to be nice to people. So she's got like the nicest like dark side character that's just wandering around making people cups of tea and like really nice to them. Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. It's been a really great interview.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I hope you have lots of success with your show going forward. I'm glad to have you join the podcast family sort portion of Elder Scrolls Online. So, episode
Thanks.
1 was great. I always joke that I can't stand listening to myself on these things. So, hopefully, after this episode, they'll be great again because I need to listen to this part.
It's all right. You can skip this. Just give
I'll
us a
just fast forward
download
myself,
so that
and I'll just
yeah.
listen to the rest of the show.
Can you let our lovely listeners know where they can find you and Tales
Sure.
and Lorecast and all of those wonderful things?
So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of if you're interested in any of the stuff that I do. I co-host Tales of Tamriel, which basically is just Tales of Tamriel pretty much everywhere, except for the book series, which is actually not us. That's an official Bethesda book. But everything else is generally us. Yeah, it's very awkward because when we came out, we were kind of like, are we going to get sued? Like, that's not, but they're very cool about it. So, but yeah, Tales of Tamriel pretty much everywhere. And then also part of Robots Radio, we are Elder Scrolls Lorecast, which both shows have a strong tie-in. We're actually officially linked with the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages for Tales of Tamriel, which everybody kind of uses the UESP for pretty much everything. But then as a side effect, since Lorecast is kind of linked with that, we're just kind of like one big family of stuff. So you can always check out Elder Scrolls Lorecast, where it's more of a just lore-based episodes, like there's a focus each episode, whereas Tales is more of a roundtable discussion of just Elder Scrolls. And as for me, I'm just Lotus of Doom on pretty much any. If I'm there, I'm Lotus of Doom. So like Twitch, Twitter, Discord, in game, out of game, like that's just kind of cross branding for all. So pretty easy to get a hold of if you need me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the show. If you've enjoyed it, please let other people know and give a review wherever you are listening to us. Rating and reviewing the show will help other people find it. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can find us on Twitter at 10th Divine Pod, or you can email us at 10thDivinePodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for the warm welcome we have received from the community this week. It's been great. We've really enjoyed interacting with people and hearing people's reactions to the first show. Hopefully you enjoyed this one as much as you enjoyed that one. If you want to find us in other places, you can find me, Raven, over at Girls Gone WoW, if you're a World of Warcraft fan, or if tabletop RPGs are more your thing, check out As the Dice Roll, where I'm part of the crew of the Cautious Optimism. You can also find me on Twitter at Silky Raven, or at the GGW Discord at girlsgonewow.net/Discord. There's an ESO channel in that Discord, and lots of people talking about non-WoW gaming as well.
And you can find me, Shanty, on Twitter or Twitch, where I do stream a variety of MMOs, both at Shantyman Gaming. You can also find me on the Girls Gone WoW Discord, joining in the ESO chatter and gaming chat, and in a variety of other ESO Discords as well. Always feel free to say hello if you happen to see me online.
And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.